All right, so I want to go over some linear regression questions on delta math. They could be kind of confusing, and this is probably these last three sections are probably the most difficult questions on delta math. So hopefully you watched part 2 of my linear regression notes video, which talks about what to do if you're given a year. So in this case, you're given a year 2002. So it's going to be similar to that. So let's go ahead and read it. It says the annual profits for a company are given in the following table. X represents the number of years since 2002. So when X is 0, that means 2002. When X is 1, that means 2003. Y represents the profit in thousands of dollars. Write the linear regression equation, rounding all coefficients to the nearest hundredth. So that's the first part. We have to first write the equation, then we have to figure out some answer. So it says round all coefficients to the nearest hundredth. So let's do that first. There's no good way to do this. You don't have to click these buttons. Actually, I advise you don't click those buttons because you won't be able to do that on the EOC. So the best way to do it is just to type it into Desmos. X is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and Y is all these numbers. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to split my screen, probably the best way to do it. Another thing, make sure you have the South Carolina Desmos up. It's the exact version that you'll be given on the EOC. It limits you into a couple of different things, but you'll just get used to the South Carolina one. Some features are not available in the South Carolina one because they limit the amount of features that you could use on the state test. So I hit plus, I hit table, and I start typing in 0, 1, go all the way to 5, and then 135, 160, 157, 192, 192, and 227. So I could zoom out, and those are my points, and it looks like it's a positive correlation. It's definitely going up as X increases, Y increases. And then I know it's going to be a linear regression. That's what my question says. So I do Y1 squiggly, MX1 plus B. And I already went over how to find that squiggly tilde button. And so my coefficients for the slope is 16.8857. And the y-intercept is 134.952. And it says we need to round all coefficients to the nearest hundredth, which is 2 decimal places. So for the slope, I look at the second decimal place, which is 8. And because there's a 5 next to it, I need to bump that up to a 9. So my slope is going to be, and I'll write it below, 16.89. That's my slope. And my y-intercept, same thing. There's a 5 here. That's my 100th place. But if I look, there's a 2 next to it. So I keep it a 5. So my y-intercept is going to be 134.95. I do not have to round that one up because there was a 2 next to the 5. So my equation is y equals 16.89 is my slope. So I need an x next to it. And I add, because it's positive 134.95. That's step 1. Sometimes these questions change. Sometimes it says round your coefficients to the nearest tenth. Tenth means 1 decimal place. So you just have to pay attention. Make sure you're rounding correctly. Then it says use this equation, find the projected profit, which is y. Y is profit. So find y when the year is 2010. Years represents X. So basically, we know the year, X, and we need to find Y. So when you're doing this, one thing to note is that you don't just plug in 2010 for X and you don't plug in 10 for X. It's the years since 2002. So what you need to do is you need to take 2010 and subtract 2002, and it gives you 8. So we need to plug in 8 for X, and then we need to find Y. So again, my equation is y equals 16.89x plus 134.95. And I know that x is 8, so I'm going to replace the x with an 8. And then it tells me what my y value is. So in the year 2010, the projected profit is $270,000 because, again, these are given in thousands of dollars. We don't have the data for when X is 8 or the year 2010. We're using our line of best fit to predict a future value. And then it says rounded to the nearest thousandth dollar or $1,000. No decimal places, which just basically means round to the nearest whole number. So 270.0. So because this is a 0 and right next to it is a 0, my answer is 270. I round to the nearest whole number here. And I hit submit. Should be all right. We're good to go. Let's get the next problem. Let's do one that's not a year. A lot of these are years. Okay, this one's not a year. So let's go back. And I'm just going to totally delete my table. I'm going to hit plus table. And again, it says first, write the linear regression that represents the set of data, rounding all coefficients to the nearest hundredth. So we need to do the same exact thing. This time, X is homework grades and Y is test grades. So we can type in 88, 77, 71, 81, not 82, 85. We scroll down, 71, 81 again, 82, and 81 again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so I typed them all in for my X values, and my Y values would be 82, 73, 71, 71, 70, 63, 82, 79, 78. So I typed in all my data. I could hit the home button, I could zoom out, and you could see it's a positive correlation, which totally makes sense because what this is saying as X increases, Y increases. As your homework grade is better, your test grade should be better, right? It's not always correct, but in general, there's a correlation between a good homework grade and a good test grade. And we're not getting into statistics about that. Doesn't necessarily imply causation. Something totally different. In general, you should know that as X increases, Y increases because this data looks like it's a positive correlation. So then I type in the Y1 squiggly. That's not what I want. Squiggly MX1 plus B. I need to take all my coefficients to the nearest hundredth, right? That's what it first says. So my M, my hundredth place is 2, and next to the 2, there's a 5. So my M is going to be 0.7. That 2 is going to round up, and my Y-intercept is 16.53 because next to the 3, there's a 0, and that just means it stays a 3. So my slope is 0.73 with an X, and my Y-intercept is positive 16.53. And so that's my equation. That's my linear regression equation. That's my line of best fit for that data. And I like Desmos because it automatically draws that line. And you can see, it's the best fit. It's going through the middle. It's going through most of those points. But then there's a whole nother thing here. It says, using this equation, I already have the equation, find the projected test grade. So it says find Y to the nearest integer, which means whole number, for a student with a homework grade of 66. So now it's saying when X equals 66, find Y. So again, the best way to do this is just on Desmos. You could type in your equation. (16.53), but now it's saying when x is 66, because homework grade is x, find y, find the test grade. Test grade is y. So I don't have data for when my homework grade is 66, right? You could go down the chart. There's no x equals 66, but I could use the line of best fit to predict it. So instead of saying 0.73x, I could replace that with 66. And then my projected test grade is 65 because I need to round up. Because this really means nearest integer means nearest whole number. So that should be correct. And that one's good. Let's see, let's do one more. Okay, so this one is a little bit different. And it's the last question that I'll do here. Always delete everything, hit plus table. Before I even read it, I know that, my x's should be 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 3. And my y's 10, 7, 5, 10, 8, 5, 1, 1, 2, 0, 1, 1, 9, 1. Okay, so this is, much bigger numbers here. My thing disappeared on me. But here are the dots. Okay, kind of look, it's a positive correlation. And so here's what I want to do. I want to do the same thing. Y1 squiggly, mx1 plus b gives me my line of best fit. And it gives me my slope and my y-intercept. And so let's go back through. It says the number of newly reported crimes in a county in New York State is shown in the table. X represents the years since 1996, and Y represents the number of new cases, so the number of new crimes. So basically what they found is in 1996, there was 1,075 new crimes reported. In 1997, there was 1,085 new crimes. So you could kind of see that as the years progress, the number of new crimes is increasing. That's at least what the data tells us. I'm not sure if that's true or not. It says, write a linear regression equation with this set of data rounding all coefficients. This time it's changed to the nearest tenth. Okay, so your M is 38.3 because you don't have, this isn't the 10th place and there's no number next to it. You could basically assume that it's the same thing as putting a 0 there, but to the 10th place would just be one decimal place. We don't need the 0. It's just 38.3. Then the y-intercept is 1,060.3 as well. So my equation is y equals 38.3 x, because that's my slope, plus 1060.3. And then here's the part that's different. So yes, it's different that you have to use the 10th place and not the 100th place. But this part right here, it says, using this equation, estimate the calendar year. And year is x. So basically now it's saying find x when the number of new cases would reach 1,410. Or 1,410. So it's saying find x when y equals 1,410. So this is much different because your equation is y equals 38.3x plus 1060.3. And usually all we have to do is plug in x. But this time it's saying find x when y is 1,410. So now we plug in 1,410, not for x, but for y. And so this is what it would look like if you were to actually write this equation. And you actually have to, this is going to require a little bit more math. But it would look like this. You would have to plug in 1,410 for y. So I'm plugging that in for y. And that equals 38.3 x plus 1060.3. This time I'm trying to find x, but I know y. So it's basically saying, hey, you know what year would it be if there was 1,410 new cases? So we're trying to find the year this time, which is x. So you solve this equation, you need to move everything over to the left side here. So I want to subtract 1,060.3. Then I subtract 1,060.3. Bring down my equal sign, bring down my 38.3x. Then you could just type that in to Desmos, or just use your calculator. But it'd be 1410 minus 1060.3. And that tells me it's 349.7. So 349.7. And then because this is being multiplied, I divide each side by 38.3. And I divide each side by 38.3. So 349.7 divided by 38.3. So 349.7 divided by 38.3, I believe is correct. 38.3, yep. So it tells me that it's 9.13. So let's see what the question says. We know that x is 9.13. That's what we found. But now let's look at the question. It says, estimate the calendar year which the number of new cases would reach that. Well, we got 9, right? If you were just to round it to the nearest whole number, we got 9. But that doesn't tell us the year. Like if I was to type in 9, like that doesn't, what year is that? Is that year 9? Well, X is the number of years since 1996. So if we got 9 as our answer, then we take 1996 and we add 9. So it would be 2005. 2005, we would have roughly 1,410 new cases. So another way to kind of think about this is if you was to take your equation here and you were to put 9 in, you get 1,405. So it might want us to put in 2006. Let's see. Because 2005 would be 1,405. It might want us to put 2006. Okay, so that question was a little weird. But it thought we were correct there at 2005. But that question is a little different because you had to solve for X when you were given Y.